Hello everybody, how you doing today? It's Superfiend here, and welcome back to Whacky World. It is, of course, Planet Coaster, and today we are back over working on this bridge. You can see it very clearly right there. And this bridge runs across a river that feeds water into the lagoon, and that was an idea I had a long time ago when developing the park ages ago, like episode 30 or like 20 or somewhere around that time, which is now well over a year ago. And the idea behind it was there's this lagoon, and I wanted to have the scenery kind of tell the story of how the water gets into the lagoon, and also like how the pirates found the lagoon. They came in through the river with their big galleon that's parked elsewhere in Whacky World, and it's like I want to have the river feeding the lagoon. It's a very essential part of how the terrain dictates the story of this whole little area for me. It's a big thing. I'm really hung up on it. So anyways, a long time ago when I first added it, I thought, okay, then we'll have the path go across, and then sometime later we'll come in and try to add some scenery to make it look like there's like a drawbridge or something that the pirates built that lead across, and maybe like little forts on each side that the pirates built, and those forts would have been built on top of some of the lost civilization scenery, because this whole area of Whacky World is lost civilization. It's gone. The pirates came in, they built on top of it. It's a little bit of a tropical theme, all that kind of stuff. And then, so I don't know, fast forward to maybe episode like 60 or 80 or who knows what. It's a very long series, and I'm not even sure when I did all of it. But then I kind of went back in and I kind of built some scenery on it, and it wasn't very good. And so, I just kind of left it with some like placeholder scenery and figured I'll come back to it later. Well, sometime last year, I was going to start streaming Whacky World frequently because I wanted to kick up my streams, although it didn't work out that way. But anyway, so I started a stream, and then I started rebuilding some more scenery on it, and that scenery didn't work out either. In fact, if you go back and you look at the beginning of this video, that scenery is now like either deleted or floating above what we currently have now. And so this footage now is my third pass at this piece of scenery. So for me, this stinking bridge is one of the hardest things I have tried to build in Whacky World. I don't know what it is about it that gives me such a creative block or makes it so hard for me to just get it right, but I just cannot get the combination of like a lost civilization foundation with the pirates building on top of it, and I just can't seem to get it right. Anyways, the good news is that even though we don't really get a whole lot done this episode, and the reason for that is one, I don't want to be too long, and two, it's already been about a week and a half since I put out a Whacky World episode, and I want to give you guys some Planet Coaster content because I want to show you that I am still working on it. But that said, we don't get a whole lot done on this. Like by the end of this video, it's not going to be finished and complete. However, the good news is it seems that 3 is my lucky number. Third time's a charm, because this direction that we're going in now really kind of satisfies my overall desired aesthetic, theming, look and feel for this thing. It's like I'm finally starting to get some ideas that work, and even though we have like some old episodes where I kind of worked on it, and then I had the live stream where I worked on it, and then we have this right here, that like this footage that you're watching right now at this point is already like a week and a half old. I went in, I did this like last weekend, and now it's it's this weekend. So anyways, and then in between there, I came in and like fidgeted with some stuff, and none of it panned out. And then I sat down and I recorded some more stuff, which is part of this video. Some of that panned out, and then when I was done with that footage, I started like tinkering and trying some new ideas, which I think they're gonna work really well, but they're gonna be in the next episode. And if I can make some of those ideas work, I think we're probably 1 or 2 episodes away from getting this thing done. It's just the hard thing is, like I said before, is to blend that theming of lost civilization and pirates. And so what we've done here is we've gone ahead, well, actually going back to the beginning of the video, the first thing I did is I got rid of the elevated paths. And the reason I got rid of the elevated paths is way back when I built them, I thought it would be cool if the paths went up, kind of like to an elevated fort platform type deal. But then when I was looking at it on both sides of the bridge, we really don't have a lot of room for extra path work, implied or actual paths. And one of the things I started adding in Whacky World after I built those original elevated paths was accessibility ramps and stuff. And so I was looking at like how would I add in accessibility features on this when the paths were elevated, and there's just not enough room, I don't think, to make it happen. And so I thought to myself, I'm going to get rid of the elevated paths, drop it down to terrain level. That's going to make the accessibility concern go away. That makes it a lot easier, although you can see now that we got some pretty bumpy ground there. So anybody who's going across this in a wheelchair or anything like that is going to have a bit of a off-roading experience, but it's better than trying to cobble in some accessibility ramps into a piece of scenery where there's just not really a lot of room for them. I don't know, maybe I could have made it work, but I think this is just easier. So anyways, when we go back down where you can see the paths again, if you look in the water, what I've done is I've added some really large stone blocks. You can kind of see them there now, although they're a little bit hidden. But so I've added these stone blocks, really big ones, kind of submerged down, but you can still see them when you're above the water. And then some of the smaller stone blocks on top of them. So it's kind of this stacked supporting structure. And so what that does for me is that helps to fill in the lost civilization theme, where it's really lost because all that's left is these foundation blocks that are submerged under the water. And then what we're going to do then is build the pirate themed stuff on top of that. And the first bit of the pirate themed stuff is that cobblestone, or that that tiled rock that forms like kind of the curb and the pathway there. And that's from the spooky pack. It's one of the spooky pack items. I can't remember what it's called. And then I kind of did myself a disservice here, but in taking the old scenery from our second iteration of this, I raised it into the air, and then I brought in from that scenery these like columns that are from the, I think it's the fairy tale or the castle kit, something like that. And so these are these like castle columns, and what I'm just trying to do here is just flesh out like some stronger or more solid supporting structure for this whole bridge. And I really led myself astray by using those castle pieces because they don't have a lot of variation in the way they look. And they've got this like little angled bit at the top of them, which they're flipped upside down. So it's at the bottom of where they are now, but then it's got this little protruding piece too. So moving them around and like working with them becomes problematic. And what you're going to see later in this video is we're going to completely abandon them for the walls and the support. I left that in here though, so you can kind of see like even though this is our third iteration of building this thing, it's like even this one is still presenting me with trouble. But by the end of this video, you're going to see, I think, that we're moving into a pretty solid direction. And then pretty soon here, because now I've got them stacked up on top of each other so that they're really tall. They're starting to Z fight with each other. You know, they get that little flickering effect in 3D graphics. We call that Z fighting. And so I'm going to go in and kind of fidget and move them around a little bit to get rid of that Z fighting. Now, this part right here is probably like one of the better ideas I had in building this. Is so after I put in those walls there, I wanted to add some like openness to them. And I thought, well, what about windows? And I wanted to do more than just using the in-game windows where you just kind of like paste it to the wall and but you can't see through it. And so I figured let's try to do some like archways or archways, stone arches. And what I ended up I went and I looked through like all the stone arch pieces in the game, and the ones that I liked the most were these ones from the spooky pack, and they're for like crypts. And I needed 4 of them to get this effect. And then so this footage is still like a week old. So like I built this, and towards the end of doing this, it's like I liked where I was going with it, but I didn't like the contrast between the crypt texture and these castle textures. And off camera, unrecorded, discarded stuff, I tried several different ways to kind of like blend those two together, and I just could not make it work. And so like when I finished this little bit of scenery here, you know, I kind of put it aside and I came back to it a week later. and with some fresh ideas. And so you'll see that in just a moment. And the fresh ideas, I don't know if they're really that, I don't know if they're that fresh or if they're just more simple and they just work better. The other thing I did too is I repeated these pieces all the way through here, these arches, to kind of like have them, expand the whole width of the wall. And you're going to see that we're not going to do that later. And I think that the way it's done later is going to work better for us overall. But pretty soon here, now we're going to fix up the Z fighting. Now, while that's going on, let me touch on something else I was doing. And it's something I mentioned in the last video when I was talking about my shipwreck huts, my little grass hut buildings, that I might go in the Theme Maker's Toolkit and make some new wall pieces, for like bamboo and other natural materials to break up the walls in those grass huts that are from the last like 3 videos before this one. And I started working on that, and it's just like real simple bamboo pieces. And, it's not hard to build a little like square piece and slap a texture on it. I'm not having any trouble with that. That's really easy. What is very difficult is getting a good normal map. And a normal map is what controls in-game how light bounces off the surface. And that also controls like how 3D the surface looks. And so I've been fidgeting off and on now for a week with this stupid little bamboo piece, trying to get it to look right. I'm almost there. I'm not quite there. When I do get there, I'll probably have a short video going in and kind of fidgeting with those grass huts just a little bit and breaking up the surfaces, because what I used for the walls in those grass huts was the adventure pack wood paneling, and it kind of like took over that whole area. Again, this is all stuff I talked about in the last video. And so I am trying to make a little bit of progress on that. But I'm not a 3D texture artist. So getting the normals for the bamboo is just like unbearably difficult. Okay, so now we're looking at stuff that I recorded just a little while ago before starting the commentary here. And so, like I said, I didn't like the contrast between the Spooky Pack Crypt pieces and the Fairy Tale Castle pieces. And so I decided, you know what, the easiest way to do this is to just get rid of the castle pieces and just build this whole foundation out of the crypt pieces. Now, this is the first place in Whacky World where I've made extensive use of these crypt textures. And so they don't, like, the stonework doesn't quite match up any of the other stonework in Whacky World. However, these are really the only pieces I think that are going to work for this, because I really want to use the crypt arches that I had previously. I took them out for this little bit here. I really want to use them, and I tried like all the different arch pieces, the castle ones, the sandstone ones, like the limestone ones, and I didn't like any of them. The crypt ones are the ones I got to use for this piece of scenery, and these are the only like other pieces that really match that texture. So we're now using this cryptstone texture. And now the nice thing about it though is that they kind of look like a little bit more mossy, and like they have a little bit more plant life and stuff on them. So they do work really well over here where the stone kind of meets the water, although the crypt pieces are not really in the water. But later on we may go and add some foliage and plant life and stuff around the base of this, and maybe climbing up the walls a little bit. Excuse me, I gotta catch my breath. But so I think these pieces are going to work pretty well, and I don't think they're going to be too out of place with all the other stone stuff that's in Whacky World currently. And so looking at the footage here, we're just I built this thing, but I want to have 2 stone arches, and I needed to kind of push them all back. And so I'm just kind of making room, and also kind of like going to be checking here in a second, I think, to make sure that I've got the proportions right, where I don't want the arch window thingies to be too tall. Like, I don't want them to be 5 feet above the people. I want them to be just like kind of just barely taller than the average person in Planet Coaster. And so we're going to be checking on that, make sure they don't get too tall and get away from us. And then what do we do after that? I can't remember. We're just going to kind of have to wait and see. I was watching, kind of veering a little off topic here. I was watching another Planet Coaster YouTuber. Might have heard of him, a little bit bigger than me, quite a bit bigger than me. It'd be Masked Bandit. And I was watching his Parkitect series today. Pretty good series. I enjoyed it. I like his commentary. He's a lot better at it than I am, that's for darn sure. But so anyways, he made a comment in there that he's been drifting into Parkitect a lot more than Planet Coaster as of late. And one of the reasons he gave for that is because, like, in an hour of playtime, he can get a lot done in Parkitect. And he said that, paraphrasing, after an hour of playing Parkitect, it's like, wow, look at everything I did. And then contrasting that to Planet Coaster, he said you can play Planet Coaster for like an hour, and then you back up and you look at it and you're like, that's all I did. And this bridge, like, that really, like, was a home run with how I feel about this piece of scenery, because this is my third pass at building this bridge scenery. And then even what you're looking at here, this video is like 17 minutes. This footage is sped up by 4 times, so you multiply 17 by 4. That's an hour of playtime, not to mention the 10-15 minute segments in between recording and throughout the week where I came in and kind of fidgeted with this a little bit to try things. And by the end of this video, it's like, it really doesn't look like I got a lot done. And that's why I was kind of saying it earlier in the video that even though it doesn't look like much, I am really happy with it though, because it is finally starting to head in a direction that I think I'm going to be satisfied with, because the first 2 iterations of this thing were just a real bear. And so when I was watching again Masked Bandit's Parkitect series today, and he said that, I was just like, oof, man, just like punched in the gut with that comment, because it's so true. Although I've never played Parkitect, so I can't speak to that aspect of it. But anyway, so one of the things I did is I added some around the corners, because I didn't like just the hard stop on those. I wanted to add a little bit more stonework support. I added the coins, or the coons, or coin. It's Quoin. I don't know how the heck you spell that, coin. I should probably look it up on Wikipedia or something. And then I tried some fencing in there for the for the windows, because we don't want the guests to like spill out of the archways into the water. That would be bad. Although, of course, we have covered this before. Wacky World does have a very nice insurance policy for such events. But so anyways, here now approaching the end of the video, what we're doing is we're just kind of we're gonna mirror it on the other side, just to kind of get an idea for how it looks. And I didn't do the arches on this side. That's okay, we'll come back, we'll do them later. I just kind of wanted to get the proportions of this thing down, and then I think but towards the end of the video, I go and I delete the last of those castle pieces that are now floating in the air above us. And then we're definitely going to do some remodeling on all this wood stuff up top. That it's not working for me. I want to have something that's maybe like a little bit more stone towers. I do want to have some wood components, but we'll get into that next video, because this one looks like it's coming to an end. So that's going to do it for us today. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you like this this new iteration of this with a with a comment or a thumbs up, something like that. And I look forward to showing you the next one as it unfolds. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all next time. You have a good afternoon, and take care.